Hi, I'm Julian and I do research on experience. Today I want to talk about Kerry, this woman who can see impossible things. And by see, I mean innerly see, in her mind's eye. So right now I can picture a white sandy beach with blue water. I'm not actually there on a beach, I wish I was, but I can vaguely innerly see it. Kerry can innerly see much more clearly than me. By impossible things, I don't mean something like the Loch Ness Monster brushing his teeth. I mean the way she innerly sees doesn't conform to our expectations of physical reality. So in conventional wisdom of reality, what you see extends to the corner of your eyes, your field of vision. Something in front of you will be sharper and around it is blurrier. And your perspective comes from your physical body. You are the center of your experience. So in Kerry's mental world, it's not like that, and it breaks these rules we expect of physical reality. I'm not saying that Kerry's experience is so wild. Many people's inner seeing breaks these rules. In fact, we can never assume that our inner worlds are like the physical world. But in our research, people are often surprised about their own experience. They don't see how it's possible. Kerry's inner seeing surprised even herself. And here's Mel, who you might remember from a past video I did. So Mel didn't have any inner seeing or inner monologue. And this time she was also one of the people interviewing Kerry. And here's Mel summing that up.
It's totally hard for us to be like, I'm pretty damn confident this was how I experienced something. But as I'm saying the words out loud, I'm aware that can't be true. So when you're saying like, well, I'm experiencing this reality and then there's this reality happening there that I'm definitely experiencing, but like I know that like, what the fuck am I saying? That you're like, yeah, but I definitely experienced it.
So Mel is also talking from her own experience, but she also found it difficult to be like, this is what my experience is like. I can hardly believe it, but I'm confident that's what it was. And we used a method called descriptive experience sampling. We worked with Russell Hurlburt, who invented this method, and I'm a fan of his. I came on and joined him for this research, and we started interviewing Mel, and then she took a turn on the other side, and we all took turns barraging Kerry with questions. So DES looks at specific moments from people's everyday lives. I'll get into the details of the method, but first let's look at an easy example, kind of like starting to play a card game before you know all the rules, and then we'll go back and see how we got this.
I was reading a book and it was kind of describing a living room scene. And the visual was a living room scene. There's a red carpet. There's an air mattress on the floor. There's lots of picture frames all around, dark kind of wooden walls. None of that was described specifically in the book, apart from the air mattress. The air mattress was noted in the book, but I sort of just created this living room scene.
So Kerry sees this living room scene that's pretty detailed with the carpet and the picture frames, but how do we know she's not making this up, or how do we know she can really remember all of these details? Well, we use descriptive experience sampling, which uses a beeper. So participants wear this earpiece and they wear it as they go about their daily lives. So maybe they're staring at their cat, maybe they're in the park watching light in the fountain, maybe they're at a wrestling match. So the beeper delivers random beeps, and it's spaced apart between 1 minute and 1 hour. After each beep, the participant has to jot down what exactly was in their experience directly before the beep. So if you're living your life, and then the beep comes, then you turn it off, we want what was caught directly by the beep. And then we have long interviews about what exactly their experience was. So we don't blindly accept all of their answers, but we probe. We try to find out, was this really there? Is this just how they think their experience is? And this can take multiple days. So multiple days of the beeps in their everyday life, jotting it down, the interviews, repeat. So this sample with the living room scene was the 4th sample of the 5th day. So here she is talking more about exactly what she sees. And I'm going to illustrate it. It's not an exact illustration because what she sees is realistic. But throughout this video, I'm just going to do these illustrations to give you a little bit of a picture.
On the right-hand side, there's a big TV with a bunch of sort of shelving and books and picture frames and like kind of trinkets. But then across from me on the other side are just a lot of picture frames kind of all over the wall, but nothing in the pictures are clear. Like they could be paintings, they could be photos, I don't really know. But it feels very sort of like warm. It's a cozy scene.
Is there movement in the image, or is it still?
No. It doesn't feel like I'm looking at a photo in the sense that my vantage point feels like I'm in the room, but it's completely still.
So what she sees doesn't have borders like a photograph, but extends around her. So imagine you're here in this room and it goes to the edges of your vision. Was anything else part of this moment? So Kerry was reading, but was she experiencing that directly at this moment?
When I read, sorry, I hear my voice reading the words inside my head. So I was on the line that said, history is watching.
But notice she says, when I read. So this is a generalization, and she's not talking about a specific moment here. And after a few times of saying things like that, Russ addresses it.
What you just said is a sort of a general characterization of my reading skills. That may very well be true. I'm not trying to discount that. What I would like us to do is to focus on a particular moment. And the particular moment is at this beep, and maybe it followed my general procedure, and maybe it didn't, and maybe my general procedure is not really what happens at moments of beeps. I'd like us to keep an open mind.
So we were never sure about the inner voice here, and at times she mentioned a British narrator in her head, and at times she mentioned her own voice. So we weren't confident about that, and that's okay. The point of DES is that each day is also training for the next day, and that's why it takes many days to do this, because people have all kinds of ideas about their inner experience. A lot of people think they're always innerly speaking, and that was Kerry's notion of herself. She found out that she more often was innerly seeing things, and I made a past video about that. Then I made a fundraiser to be able to make more videos, so really thank you so much to everybody who donated. You're the reason why I was able to make this. And I want to keep making these videos. The next ones I want to be about DS results on mental health, like bulimia and ADHD, because they can really be against the psychological mainstream. And that's because we look at concrete, specific moments and really try to get past our theories on what experience has to be. So having said that, back to Kerry. So the next sample I want to look at is from the 4th day of sampling, the second sample. She's taking a walk, and reality and imagination start to blur.
I had a visual of a silver Subaru driving on the road where I was looking, so I was still on the walk, and audio of me asking a question in my own voice. The sentence, would it be an issue to go higher?
So we know Kerry's innerly seeing the Subaru. It's not actually in front of her. And Russ's next turn contains a little lesson about the method.
Let's start with the visual. What do you see?
It's a 2008 Subaru Outback with a cracked windscreen that I just bought 2 days ago. It's got smaller tires. It was.
So let me interrupt the story here for just a second. So there's two things that are at stake here. One is the actual Subaru, and the other is what you saw at the moment of the beep. So for example, the actual Subaru has a cracked window, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you see that at the moment of the beep. Maybe it's going driving in the other direction or whatever. So the question is, what do you see?
So we want to stick to specific moments, and we want to stick to experience, not reality. Experience might be exactly like reality, and the Subaru has the cracked windshield and all that, but not necessarily. So Kerry goes on to describe, she's on the right side of the road and she sees the Subaru coming towards her, right to left on her left side, and then she gives these details.
The speed of the Subaru was going the same speed as an actual physical car that was driving past as well on the same side of the road. There was a physical, real-life Jeep, and the Subaru, in my mind, was following that Jeep at the same speed.
So let me see whether I understand that. In your real eyeballs are seeing a Jeep
Yes.
driving towards you down the road.
Yes.
And your imaginary eyeballs are seeing the Subaru, your Subaru, driving on the same road?
Yes.
Does that seem like two separate seeings? I imaginarily see the Subaru and I real life see the Jeep? Or does it seem like I'm just seeing real traffic and the real traffic has a Subaru in it?
The latter. So it feels like real traffic, and there happens to be the exact Subaru that I bought driving towards me.
Okay. So it's not a hallucination.
No, I'm not hallucinating. Sorry.
But it's a realistic superimposition.
Yes.
So the Subaru is over the road where the real Jeep is. It's not in some separate imaginary space. Kerry intrinsically knows that the Subaru isn't real, that if she walked into traffic where the Subaru was, she wouldn't get pancaked. But there's nothing visually to distinguish it as imaginary versus the real Jeep. It just looks like real traffic coming towards her. So we've already seen that Kerry can have full scenes, or she can see things incorporated into reality. So now let's go on to another sample that shows a whole new side of how she can innerly see things. This is the first sample from the 5th day. And for context, Kerry is in the kitchen with her sister. Her sister had asked where the yogurt is, and this is Kerry's experience.
In my head, I was like visualizing a tub of Faye Greek yogurt. And it was just the yogurt, like it wasn't like a full scene. It's detailed enough in the sense that it's like the classic white tub with the blue logo and like a little bit of color that I would recognize as the brand, but it's not detailed enough where I can read what's on the actual tub or anything.
So Kerry innerly sees this Faye yogurt. The outlines of the tub are clear, but the words on it aren't clear. And we came to see this selective blurriness as a skill of Kerry because she could have very detailed images, but sometimes things could be blurred. And we came to the conclusion that it often had a purpose. Maybe it was information that was just irrelevant to Kerry at this moment that she didn't need or didn't want for whatever reason. But in any case, we know it's not a full scene, it's just the yogurt. But is it like with the Subaru? Is it incorporated into her reality in the kitchen or not? And it's just the yogurt? Does that mean...
Just the yogurt.
What does that mean? There's nothing around it, or there's white around it, or black, or something else?
Nothing around it, and it's literally just the tub, so there's no like frame around it. There's no blurry edges like the edge of a scene like I normally have. But it's not on the counter, even though I'm staring at the counter. It's more like, I guess, floating.
Do you mean it's like literally you can see it floating kind of above the countertop, or is that a way to describe it's not related to the scene around, or what do you mean by floating?
Yeah, I was just trying to make it clear that it wasn't that I was visualizing it within my surroundings, so it wasn't sitting on the countertop. It was more like I kind of looked off in the distance and was visualizing it, so it was kind of like that overlay that I was talking about previously where it's just kind of in the middle of my vision, not within the context of the scene.
So this is a bit tricky to understand. It's definitely not in the scene floating above the countertop like the Subaru was on the real road. It's not a full scene. There's nothing around it. It's hard to even show this because it's not like there's white around it or black around it, just nothing. And Kerry describes it as an overlay over reality, but not actually integrated. And we're not so sure about that. We think this is kind of a remnant of her thinking her inner seeing has to in some way correspond to the world out there when it could really just be its own thing. So I think the most likely option is just that she's innerly seeing this tub of yogurt. There's really nothing around it. It's almost like her visual field is entirely yogurt shaped. So normally you have a 200 or 220 degree visual field, but hers might just be yogurt. Or it could be that the concept of visual field isn't useful to experience at all, because this can imply a separation between you and what you're seeing and how you see it. And in experience, that separation doesn't necessarily exist. So this is an example of how it's not just Kerry who needs to learn how to report on her experience, but it's also us as interviewers who always have to learn to get beyond our preconceptions. So now let's look at a final sample that really confronts the relation between our imaginary worlds and the real world and shows that any rules we think need to apply don't. This is on the 9th day of sampling, so 9 days of the beeps, the interviews, repeat, and it's the 4th sample from this day. So Kerry is on her phone and she's reading about a mountain hut and the ski resort Eldora.
As part of that, I was visualizing a hut that I've previously been to, but in the context of a different mountain. I'm specifically visualizing the view of a yurt from the outside on a hilltop that I have stood on. So I'm looking down at a real place. It was a full scene. So I had like the mountains and trees and snow and then this hut.
So she sees a hut or a yurt on the mountain. She's looking down on it from another mountain. There's snow and trees. It might look a little something like this, but we wanted some more detail.
Is this another one like the previous example of where you're seeing this in front of your reality, or like how are you visually experiencing that scene?
Like normally it's like a clear overlay.
Yeah.
And this one almost felt, the best way I could describe it is like in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Like if instead of it being in front of me, it was almost like it was literally like back here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kind of like literally in the back of my mind.
So Kerry says almost like literally in the back of her mind. And often in this kind of experience research, the metaphors people use turn out to be true. So I've seen samples where people actually see red when they're angry. So is Kerry maybe actually seeing it behind her? Russ asks about that, and he asks in a careful way so that we don't commit to it, but try to probe a little further.
So you said it was sort of like behind you. Could you describe what you mean by that? The seeing of the yurt?
It's weird because I was visualizing it as if I was looking at it straight on, but it felt like it was behind me. Almost like I have eyes in the back of my head.
And I'm gathering not only eyes in the back of your head, but eyes behind the back of your head, because you imagine yourself looking forwards at a scene that is behind you. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a confusing one.
So it's not like she has eyes in the back of her head and she's looking at the scene, but it's like the whole seeing is behind her and a bit to the side. Like her imaginary body is not in the same place as her physical body.
And that I would use as an example of the whole thing about whether something is overlaid in the real world. Doesn't matter. This imaginary seeing doesn't have to exist. Even the seer doesn't have to exist in the same place in imagination as in the real world, because the imagining seer is somewhere back there looking this way.
Imagination and reality can collide. We saw the Subaru example where the Subaru was over a real road. And then we saw the Faye example where it didn't collide. It was probably just its own separate thing. We looked at the first example with the living room where it really was its own complete scene. And then there's this example where it is a full scene, but it's different because the position of the seeing itself is not the same as Kerry's actual body. It's like there's an imaginary Kerry somewhere here who's in this scene. So this might be hard to wrap your head around. It was definitely hard for Kerry to wrap her head around, but that's one of the joys of DES, of doing this method, looking moment by moment. You can overcome your expectations. Oh, experience has to be like this. I'll leave you with the final quote from Russ about this, about watching people for the first time in some ways really come into contact with their own inner worlds.
One of the most delightful things about DES, from my point of view, is watching Kerry struggle to say, I'm absolutely certain this is what my experience is, but I don't believe it. It seems weird. I'm a little crazy. and wrestle with that, because that's like Kerry at the quick. It indicates to me that Kerry is trying her best to tell me about what's going on in her experience. And it's an honor to be there and an enjoyment to witness it and a beautiful thing to see from my point of view.